Throughout the ages, sacred plants have been revered not merely for their physical properties, but as divine messengers, bridges between our limited human perception and the vast cosmic consciousness that permeates all existence. Cannabis stands among these sacred teachers, misunderstood in our modern world where its profound spiritual potential remains largely untapped. The cannabis plant carries within its molecular structure a key that can unlock dormant spiritual faculties within the human energy system. This is not about recreational escape or mere physical relief, though these are valid aspects of its medicine. What we speak of transcends the ordinary. It is about conscious communion with higher states of awareness. Ancient mystery schools across civilizations understood this secret. From the burning censers of ancient temples to the sacred pipes of indigenous ceremonies, cannabis smoke has carried prayers and intentions beyond the veil for millennia. The plant does not create these spiritual states. Rather, it removes the barriers that our conditioned minds have erected against our natural state of expanded awareness. When approached with reverence and sacred intention, cannabis activates the pineal gland, what mystics call the third eye, allowing perception beyond three-dimensional reality. This biological mechanism was well understood by ancient spiritual scientists, who documented the pathways between plant consciousness and human energetic systems. The terpenes and cannabinoids within this plant interact with our endocannabinoid system in ways that modern science is only beginning to comprehend, but which Cayce documented extensively in his trance readings regarding plant medicines and their effects on the spiritual body. The consciousness within cannabis carries wisdom from the earth element, grounding yet elevating simultaneously. In today's disconnected world, we have reduced this sacred teacher to a commodity, stripped of its ceremonial context. The spiritual seeker must restore this context through intentional practice. Cannabis, when properly honored, does not create dependency, but rather teaches sovereignty, showing us that the expanded states it temporarily reveals are actually our birthright to access naturally through dedicated spiritual practice. The key distinction between recreational use and spiritual application lies in the approach. Setting, and intention transform the experience entirely. When we approach with reverence, stating clearly our spiritual questions and intentions, the plant responds differently, activating neural pathways associated with mystical experience rather than mere relaxation or stimulation. Many spiritual traditions speak of plants as conscious entities, teachers with specific lessons to impart. Cannabis carries lessons of balance, of being both rooted in earthly existence while simultaneously expanding into cosmic awareness. This dual nature makes it particularly valuable for those seeking to integrate spiritual insights into daily living, rather than escaping worldly responsibilities. Before embarking on any cannabis spiritual journey, one must purify both body and intention. A cluttered mind receives cluttered messages. An unprepared vessel cannot hold the sacred. The preparation is as important as the ritual itself. Fasting from negative thoughts, clearing your physical space, and setting crystal clear intentions about the spiritual growth you seek. Remember, what distinguishes medicine from poison is often merely dosage and intention. The same substance that can elevate consciousness when used with reverence can cloud awareness when approached carelessly. The spiritual path requires discernment above all else. The sacred communion with cannabis begins long before the plant enters your system. True spiritual engagement requires careful preparation of both your external and internal environments. What follows is not merely a procedure, but a sacred ceremony, one that transforms an ordinary experience into a gateway for profound spiritual awakening. Begin by selecting a time when the veil between dimensions naturally thins. Dawn, dusk, or the hours between midnight and 3 a.m. when cosmic energies flow more freely. The moon phase also influences the experience. New moons favor introspection, while full moons amplify revelatory insights. The ancient practitioners understood these cosmic rhythms, timing their ceremonies to align with celestial forces. Create a sacred space free from electronic disturbances and negative energies. Cleanse your area with sage, palo santo, or cedar, traditional purifiers that clear stagnant vibrations. Arrange natural elements that represent the 4 foundations. A bowl of water, emotional clarity; a candle, spiritual illumination, a crystal, earth grounding, and incense, air element for carrying prayers. This elemental balance creates a container for your expanded consciousness. Your physical vessel must also be prepared. A light fast of 4 to 6 hours before the ritual cleanses the body of heavier energies that might obstruct subtle perceptions. Hydrate abundantly with pure water, perhaps infused with clear quartz to elevate its vibrational quality. Deep breathing exercises for 20 minutes before beginning will oxygenate your system and begin shifting your brainwave patterns toward receptivity. Select your cannabis mindfully. Different strains carry different spiritual properties. Sativa-dominant varieties often facilitate cosmic connections and creative insights, while indica strains typically deepen inner journeying and emotional healing. The ancient traditions often blended cannabis with other herbs like mugwort, blue lotus, or damiana to direct the experience towards specific spiritual outcomes. The method of consumption significantly impacts the spiritual experience. Smoking allows for gradual titration and immediate communion, while edibles produce longer, more profound journeys, but require careful dosing. Whichever method you choose, approach it as sacred, not casual or habitual. Many spiritual practitioners prefer hand-rolled preparations using unbleached papers, blessing each element as it comes together. Before partaking, sit in meditation for at least 11 minutes, setting your intention with absolute clarity. Speak your intention aloud 3 times, each time refining and distilling its essence. Your words create vibrational patterns that the plant consciousness will respond to. Sample intentions might include, I seek wisdom about my life's purpose. I open myself to healing ancestral patterns. Or, I wish to expand my compassion for all beings. As you begin to consume, do so with ceremonial awareness. Take 3 deep breaths between each inhalation or bite, allowing the medicine to integrate gradually. Avoid rushing or consuming excessively. Spiritual insight requires precision, not overwhelming the system. The ancient wisdom teaches that less is often more when seeking transcendent awareness. After consumption, sit in lotus position or lie in savasana, corpse pose, with a straight spine, allowing energy to flow freely through your central channel. Place one hand over your heart and one over your third eye, creating a circuit between these 2 wisdom centers. Breathe rhythmically, 4 counts in, hold for 7, release for 8, continuing for at least 108 breaths, or until you feel your consciousness begin to shift. Throughout the experience, maintain witness consciousness, observing sensations, thoughts, and visions without attachment. The spiritual seeker remains aware even as awareness expands. Keep a journal nearby to record insights that emerge, as these downloads often contain symbolic wisdom that may require later interpretation. Incorporate sound vibration to deepen the experience, either through singing bowls, gentle drumming at 4/7 beats per second, theta brainwave frequency, or chanting sacred syllables like Om, Ram, or Shalom. These sound currents create pathways through which higher consciousness can flow more readily into your awareness. The ritual closes with gratitude, both to the plant teacher and to the cosmic intelligence it channels. Express thanks aloud, offer a small portion back to the earth, and seal your energy field by visualizing a golden light encircling your entire being, protecting the insights you've received as you return to ordinary awareness. What occurs during a properly conducted cannabis spiritual ritual extends far beyond temporary alteration of consciousness. It initiates a profound recalibration of your entire energetic system. This transformation, when approached with proper reverence and technique, creates permanent shifts in your soul's vibrational signature. The initial phase of transformation manifests as a dissolution of artificial boundaries, those mental constructs that separate you from your authentic nature. As cannabis interacts with your endocannabinoid system, it temporarily suspends the default mode network in your brain, the neurological pattern responsible for maintaining your sense of separate self. This suspension allows you to experience consciousness beyond the confines of personal identity, revealing what mystics have called the true self that exists beneath the personality structure. As these boundaries dissolve, dormant spiritual faculties begin to awaken. The pineal gland, calcified in many modern humans due to environmental toxins and spiritual neglect, begins to pulsate with renewed activity. This gland, revered in ancient traditions as the seat of soul perception, produces natural DMT, dimethyltryptamine, during deep meditation and transition states. Cannabis acts as a catalyst, stimulating this process and allowing access to perceptions typically veiled by ordinary consciousness. Many practitioners report accessing what appears to be soul memory during these sacred sessions, impressions from beyond this lifetime that contain wisdom accumulated through many incarnations. These are not mere fantasies, but actual reconnections with your soul's vast experiential database. The cannabis simply removes the amnesia that typically separates you from this knowledge in ordinary waking consciousness. The electromagnetic field surrounding your body, what esoteric traditions call the aura or subtle body, undergoes significant restructuring during and after these rituals. Blockages in your energetic pathways, nadis or meridians, that may have been present for decades, can suddenly release, allowing life force to flow more abundantly. This energetic clearing often manifests as spontaneous physical healing, emotional release, or sudden insights that resolve long-standing life problems. One of the most significant transformations occurs in what spiritual teachers call the heart center or anahata chakra. Cannabis, particularly when used with heart-centered intention, can permanently expand your capacity for compassion and universal love. This isn't merely an emotional state, but a fundamental shift in perception. Suddenly you recognize the divine essence in all beings, dissolving the illusion of separation that causes so much human suffering. The soul's relationship with time itself undergoes radical transformation. Many practitioners report experiencing what quantum physicists might call non-local consciousness, awareness that transcends linear time, allowing glimpses of both past and potential futures. This perspective shift often remains accessible even after the active effects of cannabis have subsided, fundamentally altering how you navigate your life journey. Your intuitive faculties, often dormant or dismissed in our rationality-obsessed culture, become heightened and remain more accessible following these rituals. Many report increased synchronicities, precognitive dreams, and spontaneous knowing that defies logical explanation. These aren't supernatural phenomena, but natural soul capacities being restored to their proper function. Perhaps most profoundly, regular spiritual communion with cannabis can facilitate what esoteric traditions call the remembrance, recollection of your soul's purpose and divine origin. This remembrance creates a fundamental shift from living reactively to living purposefully, aligned with your highest potential. Decisions that once seemed confusing become clear when filtered through this remembered purpose. The energetic imprints of past trauma, events that have created distortions in your soul's natural expression, often surface during these rituals, not to create distress, but to be finally released. Many experience spontaneous emotional catharsis that clears karmic patterns carried for lifetimes. This purification process, while sometimes temporarily uncomfortable, creates space for new, more harmonious patterns to emerge. Your relationship with the natural world transforms as the plant consciousness communicates ancient wisdom about humanity's place within the cosmic ecosystem. Many report heightened sensitivity to natural energies and the ability to communicate directly with the intelligence within all living things. This isn't regression into primitive animism, but evolution into a more sophisticated understanding of consciousness as the foundation of all existence. The most sacred transformation occurs in what spiritual traditions call the witness, that unchanging awareness that observes all experiences without becoming entangled in them. As this witness consciousness strengthens through intentional practice, you gain the ability to navigate all life experiences from a place of unshakable peace, regardless of external circumstances. This is the foundation of true spiritual mastery, not escaping reality, but embracing it fully while remaining centered in transcendent awareness. Throughout human history, across diverse civilizations and spiritual traditions, cannabis has been venerated as a sacred ally in humanity's quest for expanded consciousness. These ancient wisdom keepers understood what modern society has largely forgotten, that within this remarkable plant lies encoded knowledge and vibrational keys that unlock dormant spiritual capacities within the human energetic system. In ancient India, cannabis was known as bhang and held sacred as one of the 5 ambrosias granted by Lord Shiva. The sacred texts describe how Shiva discovered the plant's consciousness-expanding properties and shared this divine gift with humanity. Hindu mystics incorporated cannabis into their sadhana, spiritual practice, not as an escape, but as a tool for accelerating meditation, believing it activated the Sahasrara, crown chakra, and facilitated direct communion with divine consciousness. These techniques were carefully guarded, passed from guru to disciple through initiation rather than written documentation. The ancient Scythians, as recorded by the Greek historian Herodotus, created elaborate cannabis vapor baths where tribal leaders would gather to receive visions and guidance for their people. Archaeological evidence confirms these accounts, with residue of cannabis found in ceremonial vessels dating back to 500 BCE. These rituals were conducted specifically during celestial alignments, when cosmic energies were believed to be most accessible to human consciousness. Indigenous shamanic traditions across the Americas incorporated cannabis, alongside other plant teachers, in ceremonies designed to facilitate direct communication with nature spirits and ancestral wisdom. These traditions understood that certain plants, cannabis among them, contained not just chemical compounds, but conscious intelligence that could communicate directly with the human energy body when approached with proper reverence and protocol. In ancient China, Taoist alchemists classified cannabis as a superior elixir capable of conferring longevity and spiritual insight. The Emperor Shen Nung's Pharmacopoeia from 2700 BCE specifically mentions cannabis as a substance that, when properly prepared and ritually consumed, lightens the body and allows the practitioner to communicate with spirits. These Taoist masters developed specific breathing techniques to be used alongside cannabis consumption that activated what they called the extraordinary meridians, energy pathways that remain dormant in ordinary consciousness. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece, perhaps the most famous of the classical world's initiation ceremonies, included a sacred drink called Cayce, which many scholars now believe contained cannabis, along with other psychoactive substances. These closely guarded rituals promised participants not just visionary experiences, but permanent transformation of the soul and liberation from the fear of death through direct experiential knowledge of spiritual realms. Ancient Egyptian temple hieroglyphs depict priests using cannabis in fumigation rituals, designed to induce prophetic dreams and visionary states. These ceremonies were timed precisely with astronomical events and conducted within specially designed acoustic chambers that enhanced the plant's consciousness-expanding effects through specific sound frequencies. The combination of cannabis, sacred geometry in temple architecture, and precisely calibrated sound created a technology of consciousness that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Sufi mystics of the Islamic tradition, particularly certain heterodox orders, utilized cannabis in their dhikr ceremonies, rhythmic chanting and movement practices designed to induce states of divine ecstasy. These practitioners understood that the plant, when combined with specific breathing patterns and sacred phrases repeated thousands of times, could temporarily dissolve the boundaries of the limited self, allowing direct experience of what they called fana, annihilation of the ego and union with divine presence. The Zoroastrians of ancient Persia classified cannabis as a sacred plant associated with the deity Haoma, believing it facilitated direct communion with divine intelligence. Their priests developed elaborate preparation methods, harvesting the plant only during specific lunar phases and combining it with precise proportions of other sacred herbs to create what they considered the optimal substance for spiritual awakening. Perhaps most intriguing are the references in certain obscure Essene texts suggesting that early Judeo-Christian mystery schools may have incorporated cannabis oil in their anointing rituals. The Hebrew word kane bosom, mentioned in Exodus as an ingredient in the sacred anointing oil, has been translated by some scholars as cannabis. This oil, when applied to the crown of the head during initiation ceremonies, was said to facilitate direct gnosis, experiential spiritual knowledge beyond intellectual understanding. What unifies these diverse traditions is their understanding that cannabis was not to be approached casually, but as a sacrament requiring proper preparation, setting, and intention. The plant was seen as a conscious ally, a teacher rather than merely a substance, that could reveal hidden dimensions of reality when engaged with appropriate reverence. These ancient masters developed precise protocols for working with cannabis that maximized its spiritual benefits while minimizing potential misuse or adverse effects. The wisdom of these ancestral traditions reminds us that cannabis, when approached as a spiritual technology rather than merely a recreational substance, can serve as a powerful catalyst for awakening, not as an end in itself, but as a sacred tool on the path of expanded consciousness and spiritual evolution. The path of plant-assisted spiritual awakening, while profound and potentially transformative, is not without its energetic risks and challenges. The ancient traditions that preserved these sacred technologies always balanced their teachings with equally important protective protocols. In our modern enthusiasm to reclaim these practices, we must not neglect the wisdom of caution that accompanied them. First and foremost, understand that cannabis, like all consciousness-expanding substances, temporarily alters the energetic membrane that typically shields your aura from external influences. This membrane, what esoteric traditions call the etheric sheath, serves as a protective filter in ordinary consciousness. When this boundary becomes more permeable during spiritual work with cannabis, discernment becomes absolutely essential. You must learn to distinguish between authentic higher guidance and potentially misleading astral influences. The ancient Egyptian priests understood this principle well, conducting their cannabis ceremonies within specifically consecrated spaces empowered with protective symbols and invocations. Before any ritual, create your own energetic protection through visualization of a sphere of golden white light surrounding your entire being. State aloud your intention to connect only with energies of the highest vibration that serve your spiritual evolution and the greater good. This declaration acts as an energetic filter, helping to screen out lower vibrational influences. Many inexperienced practitioners make the critical error of approaching cannabis work with unresolved emotional traumas or psychological instabilities. The plant does not create spiritual problems, but it can significantly amplify existing energetic imbalances. If you carry deep, unprocessed grief, repressed anger, or unacknowledged fears, address these first through appropriate therapeutic modalities before engaging in deep cannabis spiritual work. The ancient mystery schools required years of preliminary purification before initiates were permitted to work with sacred plant teachers for precisely this reason. Beware the trap of spiritual bypassing, using expanded states to avoid dealing with practical life challenges or emotional healing work. Cannabis can reveal transcendent truths, but genuine spiritual evolution requires integrating these insights into everyday consciousness and relationships. Without this integration, expanded awareness becomes merely a temporary escape rather than a catalyst for genuine transformation. As the Vedantic teachers cautioned, the goal is not to permanently inhabit samadhi, expanded consciousness, but to bring its wisdom back into embodied living. Perhaps the most significant energetic risk involves what esoteric traditions call entity attachment, the possibility of attracting disembodied consciousnesses that may attempt to influence your energy field. While modern materialist perspectives dismiss such concepts, virtually all indigenous and ancient spiritual systems acknowledged these subtle realities and developed sophisticated protection methods. Before any cannabis spiritual work, explicitly state your sovereignty over your consciousness and energy field, denying permission to any being that does not serve your highest good. The frequency of your cannabis spiritual work requires careful consideration. The ancient traditions prescribe specific intervals between ceremonial use, understanding that too frequent consumption can create energetic dependencies and diminishing spiritual returns. Most wisdom traditions suggest waiting at least one lunar cycle, 29.5 days, between deep ceremonial work with cannabis, allowing full integration of insights and restoration of natural energetic boundaries. The Taoist alchemists particularly emphasize this principle of proper timing and moderation. After any cannabis spiritual journey, proper energetic closure is essential. Many inexperienced practitioners neglect this crucial step, leaving themselves unnecessarily vulnerable. Techniques for closing your energy field include salt baths with protective herbs like rosemary or juniper, sound clearing with bells or singing bowls circled 7 times around your body, and explicit verbal statements releasing any connections formed during the expanded state. The Essene traditions emphasize the importance of these closing rituals, considering them as vital as the ceremony itself. Be vigilant regarding the source and quality of cannabis used for spiritual work. Beyond concerns about chemical contaminants, plants carry the energetic imprints of those who cultivated them and the intentions with which they were grown. Cannabis produced in contexts of exploitation, criminal activity, or purely profit-driven motives carries these lower vibrational imprints, which can influence your spiritual experience. Whenever possible, work with cannabis that has been consciously cultivated with explicit spiritual intention. Maintain awareness of potential energetic dependencies. While cannabis itself may not create strong physical addiction, it can create subtle, energetic attachments, particularly when used to access spiritual states that one has not yet developed the capacity to reach through meditation, breathwork, or other natural means. The goal of all plant teachers is ultimately to show us our innate capabilities, rather than becoming permanent crutches. As the Buddhist tantric traditions taught, the boat that carries you across the river should not be carried on your back once you've reached the other shore. Perhaps most importantly, approach cannabis spiritual work with genuine humility rather than seeking spiritual experiences to enhance your ego or spiritual status. The most dangerous spiritual poison is pride, believing that expanded experiences make you more spiritually advanced than others. True spiritual development manifests as increasing compassion, ethical refinement, and humble service, rather than accumulation of extraordinary experiences. As Cayce himself repeatedly emphasized in his readings, spiritual gifts carry corresponding spiritual responsibilities. The ancestral wisdom regarding protective practices was never meant to instill fear, but to ensure that the powerful spiritual technology of cannabis served genuine awakening rather than confusion or energetic depletion. By honoring these protective principles with the same reverence as the ceremonial practices themselves, you create the conditions for cannabis to fulfill its highest potential as a sacred ally on your spiritual journey, opening doorways to expanded consciousness while maintaining the integrity of your energetic system and spiritual development. If these ancient wisdom teachings about cannabis as a spiritual tool have resonated with your soul, take a moment now to subscribe to this channel. Your spiritual journey deserves this knowledge. Leave a comment sharing your own experiences or questions about sacred plant practices. Your insights may illuminate the path for others seeking higher consciousness. Remember, true wisdom flourishes in community. Subscribe, comment, and join our circle of seekers, transforming consciousness, one ritual at a time.